Hey guys, Matt here with Reach Your Summit. In this video, I want to share with you a tent that I've been using quite a bit this year. Been very happy with it. It's great if you're on a budget, and it's very lightweight and spacious. I've used this tent on multiple backpacking trips and also bike packing trips. So some of you might be able to tell which tent it is just by seeing it in the packaging here. But for everyone else, that tent is the Lunar Solo by 6 Moon Designs. In this video, I'm going to show you the tent a little bit more up close, also go over some of the benefits and drawbacks of the tent, and show you the complete setup. So let's get started. This is the tent. So all you're getting is a single wall tent. So this tent is very lightweight. So on its own, according to 6 Moon Designs website, this tent weighs around 26 ounces. On my scale, mine was just a couple of ounces lighter, so it was around 24. This is a one-person tent. There is also a two-person option, which is the Lunar Duo. And this tent on its own comes in at $200. It is not seam sealed. You can either seam seal it yourself, or you can let 6 Moon Designs seam seal it for you, which I prefer to do just so I can get a cleaner job done to the seam sealing, and that added an additional $30 to the tent. So if you get 6 Moon Designs to seam seal this specific tent for you, the total cost will be $230. This tent uses a guy line system, and you have to stake out the entire tent, and it uses one single trekking pole. The preferred length of the trekking pole is around 49 inches or 125 centimeters. With the poles I use, they're fixed length, they're 120 centimeters. I still don't have any issues setting this tent up or using it, so that could be a matter of preference. So along with this tent, it does not come with a footprint. You have to purchase that separately. So I went with picking up a sheet of Tyvek from 6 Moon Designs as well. This is made specifically to sit underneath the Lunar Solo. This weighed around 4 or 5 ounces on my scale, and it costs $9 to purchase. Lastly, with this tent, you need to pick up a set of stakes. You need 6 of them to set up the tent. You can pick up an additional 2 and carry those with you if you need some extra storm resistance, and I'll show you that in a little bit when we set the tent up. So I just have a lightweight sill nylon bag here by Sea to Summit, and I chose to go with the MSR Mini Groundhog stakes. These are great. They hold up really well. They keep this tent in place. I've never had any issues with these, with this specific tent. And all of the stakes that I have in here are going to weigh a total of around 2.5 ounces. Lastly, as I mentioned, this is a trekking pole style tent, so you're not carrying tent poles with you. You need a trekking pole. So if you're hiking with poles, it's excellent. Great way to cut down on weight and carry less. And if you choose not to hike with trekking poles, that's okay. 6 Moon Designs and other companies do carry single poles and sell them, so you can set up a tent like this tent that I'm going to show you. And so the poles I use are the Black Diamond Carbon Z poles. These are 120 centimeters in length, as I mentioned, and they are a fixed length, so I cannot adjust them at all, but I've never had any problems with using these to set up my trekking pole tents that I've used. And I have over 1,800 miles on these poles now, so I'm really pushing the boundaries with these, and eventually they're going to give, but I just want to see how long they can withstand use before I replace them. Once I do, I might go with something that's a little more traditional, adjustable, but for now I've been very happy with these, and I find I don't fuss with the adjustment too much while I'm hiking, and of course when I'm setting up my tents. So this is all that you need to set up the tent. Let me show you setting it up now. So first I'll try to find level ground as flat as I can and make sure there are no roots and rocks on the ground. Then I'll take my Tyvek and I'll lay that out over where I'm going to be setting up my tent for the night. If you want to soften up the sound of Tyvek a little bit, you can wash it in your washer in a cold cycle for a couple of cycles if you wanted to. That's what I did. It helped soften up the sound a little bit, didn't make it sound as crinkly, and then you just let it air dry after you wash it. So next, I'll make sure that this tent is laid out completely over the footprint. Get it pulled out and nice and relaxed as much as possible. And the reason you want to do that is because of this material that they use for this tent and the way that you stake it out. So the material used in this one is a Sil poly. So it's a siliconized polyester material. The older tents use the Sil nylon. The Sil polyester reduces the stretch a little bit that you get. It also helps with reducing the absorption of water and gives you a nice taut pitch. It also allows this tent to be a little more compact than the previous iteration, but with the material and the choice of fabric thickness that they used in this tent, it will increase the weight a little bit compared to the previous generation of this tent. With the guy outs, you want to make sure that your webbing is extended as much as possible with this buckle here, and you want to do that with every single one of these. Another really nice feature to this tent is that this webbing is reflective. So all of your guy outs will be reflective. Makes it really nice to see at night with your headlamp on. That's something that I really liked with this tent. Now this tent has 6 guy out points. You do get instructions that help you with setting it up. And once you set it up a few times, it becomes second nature. It's very simple to set up, very quick, but it might take you a couple of tries just to get it set. So it's good to try setting this up at home a couple of times before you head out on the trail if you decide to go with this specific tent. So the way that you want to start staking this out, we're going to start over in the far right corner on the same side as the door in the vestibule. Then we're going to stake out the other opposite corner at the far left in this video. And then we're going to stake out the far back in the middle. Those are going to be the 3 that we start off with. When you're setting this up, before you stake it out and you find your level ground that you set the tent up in, you want to make sure that the back end of the tent is facing into the wind. This will help reduce rain from going inside of your tent, sand from going inside of your tent, depending on the location where you're setting this up and camping, and it will just allow you to enjoy the experience a little bit more. I want to make sure that this is at about a 45-degree angle from the corners of the tent. And just pull this out loosely, and I put my stake through the end loop here. And then just put that in the ground. I like to put my tent stakes at an angle. That'll help give a little bit more friction and resistance from this webbing popping out on you. With these particular stakes, they do have some cutouts right here, which will bite into the webbing also. Then I want to set my trekking pole up into the sleeve that is going to give the tent structure. So in doing that, there's a sleeve right here, and you'll find a grommet down at the bottom here also. So I just take the tip end of my trekking pole, I slide that up into the sleeve, and then I prop my tent. If you're using the pole that Six Moon Design sells separately, you want to have the tip go into the grommet and then the other end go into the sleeve. But because I'm using a trekking pole, my grip on this trekking pole is not going to fit into this sleeve, so I want to put the tip in the top and have the grip of my trekking pole in contact with the ground. Then I'll pull this over. I'll take my guy line right here and another stake, and I'm going to stake this out. So now I have a very loose pitch. I'm going to zip my door. Keep that set for now. And then I'm going to stake out the other two corners in the back. Alright, so now that this is loosely pitched, then I like to make everything nice and taut. And once I have it set to where I want it, then I can take one of these black tabs right here and clip it to this little toggle right here. This is on a prusik, so when this is getting pulled on, it's going to have tension, it'll lock in place. When you take the tension off, you can slide it and adjust it to where you want it. Very simple, clever design, and that's it. And then I can slide this down even more if I wanted to put tension on that. So this tent can open up only on one side. There's one door, a very large door, and it has a floating bathtub style floor, which helps keep dirt and rain out of the tent. The sill poly material here is 6 inches high, and the mesh that goes all the way around the entire tent at the base near the floor is going to be 6 inches high as well. So this is a single wall tent. With any single wall tent, especially here in New England with the ambient humidity at night, you will get some condensation. That's just unavoidable with any single wall tent. There is one vent up here which works relatively well at giving you some airflow, but if you're out on a nice dry night, it might be more beneficial to keep your tent open like this, just so you can get better airflow going through the tent to help mitigate condensation from building up. The vestibule is pretty large, so you can fit quite a bit of gear in there if you wanted to. So the canopy material is a 20 denier sill poly, and the floor of the tent has been upgraded with this new generation to a 40 denier sill poly. This gives it extra abrasion resistance, more durability, which is something that I really appreciate. So with these new materials, the hydrostatic head is around 3,000 millimeters. And the no seam mesh is a 20 denier as well. I mentioned 6 stakes to set this up. There are 2 tie-outs, one on this side that's reflective and one on this side that's reflective. You can add additional guy line to each of these and stake the tent out more if you need extra storm proofing in very, very windy conditions. I've had this tent out in around 30-mile-an-hour winds and it held up really well. I haven't had it out in anything too much more substantial than that yet. I haven't experienced anything like that inside of this tent, but with the 30-mile-an-hour winds, it held up really well. I didn't have any trouble. And it's just a great tent for the price. Really good if you're on a budget, and it's not cutting corners with durability or function at all. So let me show you the inside. So the door with this tent opens very wide. It's really nice for taller backpackers and for people that just want a little more room and less fuss with getting in and out of the tent. So one of the drawbacks with the sill poly is that your sleeping pads are going to slide around on this material very easily. So what I did with this tent was I took seam sealer and painted dots around the bottom of the tent. That's going to give me extra friction to keep the pad in place a little bit better. So this tent does cave in on the back end, but for one person it is very, very spacious. You're looking at about 48 inches for the width of the tent and 90 inches for the length of the tent, and then you have additional length on either end of the tent under the vestibule and under the entire canopy of the tent. With the vestibule, I'll usually leave my footwear outside of the tent, or I'll leave it inside of the tent as I have pictured here, and I'll take my other trekking pole and just lay it right along the outer edge of the tent. There's a small pocket right near the doorway, so you can put your headlamp in there if you wanted to. And you could see with my regular length, regular width Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite pad here, this is 20 inches wide by 72 inches long. I still have plenty of room inside of the tent. I like having the mesh down at the bottom here because if I do rub up against it at night, I'm not going to get condensation rubbing off onto my quilt or sleeping bag, whichever I choose to use. And I could take my pack, toss my pack in the other corner of the tent, and I have quite a bit of room still. I'm not touching the tent at all. And the other side. And the peak height of this tent will be 49 inches right there, and then it does taper down. If you choose to, you can do what I did and paint the seam grip dots on this side so you have a little bit more room to move around inside of the tent. The reason I did not paint them on this side was so I can get changed and move around and just hang out in the tent when I want to. And I like to sleep along the back end of the tent. Gives me better storm protection. And you can see Six Moon Designs seam gripped all of the seams everywhere where it's needed. Up here too, all on the outside. So there you have it, the Six Moon Designs Lunar Solo. I've been very happy with this tent. As I mentioned, I've used it on bike packing trips. I've used it on backpacking trips. I even used this tent in some light winter conditions toward the end of the winter season. and it held up very well. And it's been a great tent. For the price, it's very tough to find something around this weight with this amount of spaciousness and durability. As I mentioned, the drawbacks to this tent are the material itself can be very slippery. So if you're using a pad like the X-Lite that I had or the Uber Light that I've been using, you want to have some type of adhesive on the bottom of the tent floor just so you can get a little bit of friction with that pad and keep it in place. The other thing is the condensation. So with a single wall tent, as I mentioned, condensation is going to be unavoidable to a certain degree. So with that, I'll make sure that I'm setting up my tent where I'm getting good airflow at night. I might keep the tent door open if it's a nice, calm, clear night. And then for days when the odds are against me a little bit more, I will bring a quick drying hand towel made out of microfiber that will absorb quite a bit of the moisture inside of the tent. If you have any questions on this tent or any other gear in my other videos, please feel free to get in touch with me in a comment below, or you can always contact me at reachyoursummit.net. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I greatly appreciate all of it. And I'll see you on the trail.